And welcome back. Do you remember? How could we forget? The 2000 presidential election, the one between Democratic candidate Al Gore and Republican candidate George W. Bush. It was the year of the hanging chad. It was also the first legal challenge to a presidential election. Bush was ahead in Florida by less than 1,000 votes. That is a margin that triggers a recount under Florida law. It's a battle that played out for 36 days until Bush was ultimately called the winner in the end. And the question today is this something we could see repeated? You know, Donald Trump has threatened to dispute the results of the election. He's claimed elections fraud. What would happen if he contested the results? What would happen if it were just too close to call? Let's ask a lawyer, Dane. So we have attorney Dane Heptner here to talk to us a little bit about it. Good morning, Dane. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so what happens if there's a contested election here? Well, where does it? How do they hear? It's a federal election.
Right. So even though we're talking about federal positions, you know, U.S. senators, president of the United States, you got to keep in mind that the elections are actually run at the state level. There are state laws, rules, regulations, elections officers who do the elections within each state. And so when we talk about challenging a result, really what we're talking about is the margin of victory for a particular candidate is so narrow in the state that the state will either have a discretionary or a mandatory manual recount procedure. And so we're talking less than 0.5% of the margin of victory. Then we go into this manual recount phase. And depending on the candidate, you can make challenges to maybe the manual recount wasn't done correctly, and you can bring those challenges in the state's Supreme Court.
Okay.
So that's kind of the way.
So that's where it would start.
Right.
This could be a lengthy process there, right?
Well, it can be a difficult process.
Expedition is the priority there.
Right, because you got to keep in mind, the state only has a small window to get things figured out. There are federal deadlines that kind of drive the election process. 35 to 46 days is really when the state has to make up their mind and give the certified results of the election.
Okay.
Otherwise, the U.S. Congress has the authority, the discretion to kind of disregard the states because the results haven't been turned in and pick their winner. So a candidate really only has, in a nutshell, 5 weeks or so to challenge the results, bring their case through the state Supreme Court, and then there are even rarer circumstances than that. We saw it in 2000, where you can make United States Constitution challenges like, the way they did the recount violates equal protection. That was the story in 2000. And so that's when the United States Supreme Court gets involved. And so it can get hairy pretty quick.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get that messy in the end. Yeah, and you know, I think that too, the presidency would not be affected because you have inauguration day after the first of the year. So you're saying that 30 to 45 day window is not really enough to affect the presidency.
Right. Ultimately,
there will be a call made prior to that.
Exactly. So ultimately, the United States Congress, they're the ones who pick the winner. And so they're going to do that before Inauguration Day. And so anything that hasn't been settled or resolved before then is just going to kind of fall to the wayside. And keep in mind, within the states, in the meantime, so maybe the Republican candidate wins a particular state, and the Democratic candidate wants to make a challenge. Well, if that state has elected Democratic United States senators or House of Representatives members, their votes are being recounted too. So the party is going to say, well, time out, candidate, you know, our guys are already in there. We don't want to do this recount.
We're not part of the problem.
So you're going to get lots of pressure from different places. And another thing, of course, to consider is the circumstances to sway the election have to line up just so. The magic number is 270. So if you're fighting about a state where the Electoral College is, only 4 votes, it's a small state for election purposes, it's probably not going to sway the election one way or the other.
Major swing state.
Right.
Let's hope that if there is a dispute, one stipulation can be no more campaign ads.
Right.
But we hope to have an answer on Wednesday morning.
Right.
And
we will. My presidential seal tie today in support of the election, so hopefully everybody does that.
We hope so.
Right.
All right, Charlie, we'll get over to you right now. Look at what you're up to today. Hey, Charlie.
The best part of this